Welcome everybody to the Package Group Weekly Sync for March 30, 2020. First item on the agenda is Tim's, but Tim's out. We linked to the kickoff video for the current milestone for everyone to take a look at. These are all our big goals that we're sharing with our customers. So it's probably worthwhile having a look through the video when you get a second. I think it's a really probably a good habit to be in so that we can sort of understand how we're talking about it. And then I have the next item. Looking for feedback from the team on how many package P1 commitments we have in each milestone. I'd appreciate if people could respond to this item with some indication of percentage of effort for a milestone. Something like 80% of effort was on package P1. Nico?
Sorry, unmute button lost. So for me, it's 33% on P1, 33 on P2, and 33 unlabeled up until now. David?
Yes, for me, it's almost half, but it's a bit more on P1 since when I look for new work, I look for the P1s, and the rest was spent on leftovers from 12.9 and the security fix, and also some small, tiny MRs.
Cool. Thank you for that. I think what I'm looking at here is I want to make sure that we've sort of built our milestone to have a bit of flexibility in it, so that we could respond to things as they came up. So that's why we don't have a heap of stuff committed before, for each milestone. So I'm trying to keep an eye on it, that we're not like going back to having, milestone full of things and no flexibility, because that leads to not being able to deliver on our commitments. So that seems fine. I'm not sure if the other people in the team want to give feedback now in real time, or they want to add it to this comment, or an issue is worthwhile. Thoughts? I think maybe I'll create an issue here. Seeing I had, we're getting real-time comments in the agenda, everyone who's following along at home. That's why I'm chuckling. All right, this seems like a good reason to create an issue. So I'll go create an issue in the team board and we can follow up there, right?
A question, can we do that on Periscope instead through the API? Because I think you have this categorization already done of some sort, right?
Yes, but I think you're right. I can go look that up in Periscope, given the data is correct. But there's other elements to it.
It doesn't, that doesn't tell you the time that you spent necessarily.
Yeah, it also doesn't say, like, I guess part of the reason I'm actually just asking people is because I want to get people's sense of it, right? Like, and if we talk about how we prioritize our work, it's interesting to me to know people go, I'll just pick up the next thing that comes along. I don't have a sense, or I'm very clearly picking up a certain percentage. Like, that's useful to me. I'll put it in an issue and we can discuss it there. And I can look up the actual raw numbers of like an issue or whatever, but as Steve mentioned, it doesn't sort of put in effort. So thanks for the conversation, y'all. I'll go create an issue. I also have the next item, shockingly. Given the COVID-19 situation, we're wanting to get a sense of capacity in real time. I'm going to work out a good way we can record. I'm trying to work out a good way we can record this. In my head, I'm thinking that recording PTO Ninja the time you would normally work, but didn't because you needed to support your family, which is definitely the priority. I don't like the idea of time tracking. So this would be something like, I was going to work for X hours this evening, but my significant other needed to do a thing and I needed to take care of our small humans, for example. So you'd put that many hours in PTO Ninja. Just wanted to get people's thoughts on that. if any. No thoughts? Cool. But what's interesting here is from an organization perspective, we've seen big dips in output in the past at random times. There's obviously a reason to it at some level, but being able to track that in the data we have isn't always easy. So I think part of the idea here is what capacity we are operating at is really the question. It's not, like I said, I don't want to be time tracking people because I just don't think it's not valuable, in my opinion. And that may be true, that may not be true for the rest of the organization, but understanding that we're operating at 60% capacity because people have to do another thing that's more important, like look after your family, that is actually useful. And it does let us characterize what's happening with, say, if our throughput goes down or our MR rate, or we don't deliver on some of our commitments, or whatever it is that happens, we have a little bit of real-time data to understand what happens. So
can I have a question about that?
of course.
In this particular situation, is time really a match one-on-one in productivity? Because I may be sitting 8 hours in front of my computer, but being stressed about getting sick and produce like 20% of what I usually do. So maybe asking people like how productive do they feel from -10 to 10, from 0 to 10 will make more sense. I don't know. I don't know if it's trackable at that point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think you're right. I'm definitely a lot more stressed than I would be otherwise. So I can appreciate that comment. I don't think that just saying I worked 2 hours instead of 3 before lunch or whatever it was indicates necessarily their level of productivity, but it's sort of looking for an objective measure. And how productive do I feel? I don't know if we have a baseline to use that data. So it's hard to sort of say, well, yeah, I felt 70% less productive, or, you know, I felt 70% of my normal 100%, you know. So that's, I don't know. It's a good question though, Nico. Thank you for asking. Yeah, I think it also relies on a particular scenario where you go, oh, okay, I'm planning to do a thing this afternoon, and then something comes up, right? So yeah, I don't know exactly how to do that. All right, I think we'll have to come back to this. Maybe we can chat in Slack, or I'll create another issue to talk about it. So moving on to David's item.
Yes, so since I missed kind of important issue about contribute and canceling and asking for refunds on your ticket, this is a friendly reminder that company announcements channel can have pretty important information. And I saw this morning that a new channel has been created, which is company FYI, and company announcements has been renamed, if I'm not wrong. So keep an eye on those channels.
Yeah, they did get renamed. I saw that discussion last week. Yeah, I missed a couple of things with contribute myself, because you sort of have to be watching certain channels to get it, and then having someone cross post. So they're breaking those channels up into stuff that you should absolutely pay attention to, and is going to be sort of moderated by the internal communications team, which is going to be one of those channels. And the other channel is going to be like other sort of like, hey, anyone can come in and post, like the existing company announcements is. Thoughts, questions? Cool. Thanks for sharing that, David. I have the next announcement again. I think it might be helpful to add weekly async updates to epics to roll up changes made during the week. This is not soft language. I'm saying I think it might be helpful, but if people don't feel like that's going to be helpful, I'm interested in both positive and negative responses to that if people have it. Thoughts?
I think it's perspective. I mean, like I personally never look really at the epics in that manner, so it wouldn't necessarily be helpful for me. But if it's helpful to others in understanding what's happening, then certainly I would want to make the effort to help in that way. The other aspect is sometimes I like don't necessarily know what epic my issue is in. Like I'm not like I might know, but it's not something that I'm like consciously paying attention to. So it might make it a little trickier to find the epic.
Yeah. Nico, you look like you were going to comment.
Yeah, so I will be curious about team point of view on this, but because I think the two main user of the epics, it's you, Dan, and team, right? We work more on the smaller case, at least day to day.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a fair comment. I mean, I think the intent here is like we have some what we call meta issues where we have a lot of community engagement in some feature that we're developing. And in fact, we have a label called meta, right? That's sort of intended to show that this specific issue isn't being delivered. It's just a roll up of the thing that we're going to end up delivering in other issues. But rather than sort of remove that engagement from the community and create a whole other epic that would roll up the actual issues we're working on, we create this meta issue. The epics, we're trying to move to epics, and as we start working on stuff where we've created the epic from scratch, that's probably where we'll get the engagement. And so the idea there was to have some roll up where everyone was really interested, could get updates on that issue, on where all of the actual sub issues were actually at. And that was kind of the idea of sort of disseminating information in that way and allow people to sort of get updates for the thing they're interested in via the epic. Yeah. All right.
Would a task list be helpful? Like a task list in the epic. For example, we do that for the online garbage collection epic for the container registry. So we just list all the tasks that we need to do, and we go and tick each one of them as they are done. Because I think the concern for me is that if we are doing this, we may end doing recursive async updates.
Yeah.
And it may span several layers. So issues in GitLab, issues in the container registry, epics in the GitLab repo. So it might get complicated and probably out of sync at some point.
Yeah, this is my main concern is like it feels like double work. I see the value of it because if people who are actually engaged in this feature are there, then I want those people to be able to get updates. But I don't want people to have to enter stuff twice because that's just a waste of everyone's time. So
is there any like particular information that maybe like wouldn't be quite a duplicate? Because I'm looking at an epic page right now. You can see the milestone, you can see weight, you can see who an issue is assigned to, and
where it's at. Yeah.
And I think you can see like if the issue is still open or closed based on the color of the issue. But is there any other like if the issue is in progress or something in a given milestone, is there any like specific type of information that would be helpful on a weekly basis outside of the like, you know, I'm this far along, writing tests kind of update?
Maybe it will make sense to be able to see in the issue that are in the milestone the workflow label, like directly in the UI, right? So if you see that you have 10 issue all in Canary, you know that the epic is about to be closed, or 10 issue on production and they just need to be checked and closed, and you can move on.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, all right. I think, yeah, Cool. Well, thanks. I think my feeling just having talked with everyone is this feels like double effort, and I don't like that. That always feels like doing busy work to me when you make someone put this thing here and also put it over there. Like, just I don't like doing that. So I think I would just leave this alone. But it sounds like I like that idea of sort of bubbling up the workflow labels, Nico. That seems like a cool idea. Maybe it's a sort of product feature suggestion. Yeah, but yeah, let's just leave it for now. I think I'm really appreciating the async updates we're doing. So I'm really glad that we're doing that because it's been super helpful to me. I know Tim. I don't want to speak for Tim, but I know I've talked with him about it a bunch of times. So he's really stoked to have the async issue updates. So, all right. Does anyone else have thoughts here that they want to? Ian, I think I saw your mic off. Your mic unmuted before. Did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I was kind of curious from the outside because I like to work in the epics that it's kind of nice when a big event happens. It's like we just shipped this or this hit production. Those kind of updates are helpful. But I don't want to create that double work. That was a big concern that I had. That's why I was kind of quiet about it. But about the workflow labels, we have an issue open where I'm working with Nick, where we are showing the users where we're at with the new package managers. And we're thinking about using the workflow labels very specifically to let our users know that. So it could end up that they work together nicely, that we understand what's going on as well as be able to put that in the UI automatically. Just as food for thought.
Yeah, cool. Thank you for that. I'm sorry, I'm not sure I caught that last part in the car. I was trying to take notes while I was listening. Sorry, Ian, would you mind finishing that thought? My apologies. Cool. Oh yeah, cool. All right, over to me, I guess, is the next one. Just something to remember as we go milestone to milestone. If you have a feature that gets labeled with a missed deliverable, we want to have a bit of a retro on how we missed it and why. I know David's done it, and I'm sure at least one other person has done it, although I have to go. One of the sort of things that I want to do at the end of each milestone is go follow up on all of those missed deliverables. So I'm going to probably do that for 12.9 now that we're out and go check all of the stuff with missed deliverable. So that's just kind of a piece of, it's not, I don't want it to be like busy work type stuff either, but I do want to sort of have people who are following along on the issue understand what happened, because it could be that right now we're not operating at full capacity because, you know, maintainers are also like having a life and dealing with people stuff. And so they aren't necessarily able to do things at the same speed. So that you know, the situation is impacting everyone. So there's certainly reasons we want to investigate and communicate like what happened and what can we do to avoid it next time. People are welcome to add thoughts or move on to João. Now go ahead, João.
So just a note, because I've been seeing some container registry issues being raised, both in the GitLab repo, others in the container registry repo. So it gets kind of confusing having them in two separated places. So I think it would make sense to concentrate all of the issues in the container registry repository, unless the problem originates in the GitLab source code. So if there is something that needs to be fixed on the GitLab source code, it should be on the GitLab repo. Otherwise, it would be on the container registry repo. The only exception would be the epics, because we don't have epics in the container registry.
Cool. Did you want to? I mean, you have it crossed out, Nico. You're good. All right, sweet. And over to you, Nico.
Yeah, so just a food for thoughts comment. I think we should write more feature tests. So our documentation is kind of scary about them. There is a whole paragraph like consider not writing a feature test. But recently I went through cross-stage big refactors that would have been impossible without those amount of feature tests. And I think it's important. I just wanted to underline that we should remember about them more often. The workflow is a bit tricky. Like Ledger-bot doesn't suggest a reviewer for feature tests, so they fall in the maintainer line of front end or back end, depending on which functionality you're gonna touch. This is probably more on the front end because we have more like view, button to move, form to display. Just wanted to know what the other people think about it.
Yeah, I think maybe it might be worth like making an MR on that documentation, Nico. Like, and then if you feel like that's not right, like that's kind of how you sort of try to make change at GitLab, right? Is to go make an MR on the feature, on that actual piece of documentation and say, hey, yeah, be careful, but hey, you might want to also consider writing it for this reason, like add the value of writing feature tests there. I'm not going to tell you to go do that because I don't think that's really what we are sort of tasked with here at Package Group. But I think if you have a concern about the documentation, that's the way you probably want to handle it. Sorry, I'm not trying to palm that off at all. I think it's a valuable comment, but like it's probably what you want to do there.
Yeah, I think feature tests, especially I feel like in our stage, kind of make a lot of sense because we have a lot of disconnected items. So, you know, we have like the package client side of things, and then we have the, you know, front end versus back end package, and they're all working together. But if we're just writing these unit tests and these like single piece tests, we don't necessarily see if one connection breaks without those types of feature tests. So I think they could be really valuable in our stage in that manner, at least.
Yeah, good call out, Steve. That's a great, even that comment would form the basis of just an addition to the documentation in the form of an MR, right? You know, for some teams with a bunch of disconnected things that come together, a feature test could be extremely valuable to identify areas of bugs that actually go across contributions, right? So yeah, nice. All right, does anyone else have a comment here? We're sort of at time. Cool. Let's just hang around briefly after the recording finishes, if people don't mind. And otherwise, thank you everyone for following along at home. I hope everyone is doing okay, staying safe, staying healthy, and we'll see you next time.